A National Sports Day, I don't think we could have asked for any better panel. I think two of the finest sportsmen that India has ever produced. I think what you will also walk away from here is not just that they're fine sportsmen, they have enormous amount of business knowledge. I've interacted with both of them and their questions and their comments about business models, business strategies. I think you'll get a glimpse of that today. Also, I just want to let you all know that Gopi is kind of one of the founders of Endiya. And the spirit for Endiya, the purpose of Endiya, when I kind of quit DFJ and wanted to do something, I had volunteered with Gopi while he was building the Pullala Gopichand Badminton Academy. I remember that day, at ISB when he said, I'm going to produce Olympians. Not many really believed. I think there was a lot of disbelief in the audience saying, can this ever happen? But I think he had the belief and he translated that into reality. Abhinav is soon going to do that as well. I mean, he's embarking on a journey that obviously set up a foundation and then contribute to sport. They've already been contributing as part of Go Sport Foundation. I think at Endiya, we also wanted to really provide a platform to startups that have aspirations to go global. We said, why can't Indian startups go global, right? I think we've seen IT services companies, BPO companies, of course, a lot of consumer and mobile internet companies. And time has come for India to produce some of these product companies that will have not just India aspirations, but also regional and even global aspirations. So I think also there's so much parallel between sport and entrepreneurship. That's what we're going to delve into today. My humble submission, I was a sports person before I moved to engineering. I played table tennis at national level. I remember actually, I went and told my father that I wanted to become a clerk in LIC and continue to play table tennis and not go into engineering. My father said, it's your choice. I'll let you decide because it's very difficult to kind of make it to the top in sport. It's not easy. I somehow reflected and I said, let me be an engineer. So I think I've made a good decision, though I have two great people here. So I want Abhinav and Gopi to kind of address the gathering here. You have the finest of entrepreneurs, investors, the entire ecosystem, corporate executives. Please, kind of share quickly your journey and, of course, what you're looking at in future before we start the panel discussion. Abhinav, may I request you to go first?
Well, good evening, everybody. It's a great pleasure to be here this evening. I had a fairly long career in sport. It lasted 22 years, and as all of you were talking a little bit in your language, now that I've exited my investment, I can speak a little more, look at it a little bit more dispassionately. Looking back, I think apart from a couple of medals at home, I think what I remember most fondly is the journey, or what I had for 22 years. It was about waking up every morning, working hard, working towards a goal, enjoying the boring and the mundane, because a sports career is, apart from the few victories that you all get to see on television, it is about doing the boring and the mundane well. It is about doing the little things well, and looking back at my career, that's what I miss. That's what I miss most, and it's more about the journey. It's about working with your limitations. As athletes, as people who won medals at the international level, we all may look, as superheroes, but the reality of life is that we are all born with our limitations, and we have our own issues, and we have to work on them and work on them hard and try and overcome them. So it is a daily challenge that we have as athletes, and as I like to say, the Olympics come once in 4 years, but for us athletes, it's every day. It's about waking up every day, working with honesty and integrity, and putting your best foot forward. And if you know that, I think that is the most important thing in a sports career, because in a sports career there is only one guarantee, and that is that you have absolutely no guarantee for any success. So you can just do the best that you can, and I think if you're able to do that, you'll still have your own self-respect, and looking back, I think that is the most important thing of all.
Gopi?
For me, it was a chance. Good evening, everybody. I think Abhinav spoke so well and precise on the things which were very important for sport. For me, my studies weren't as good as Satish, so my parents let me continue playing badminton. And I got my job when I turned 18. That's when I won the junior nationals, and they said, okay, you can continue. That's when my career actually started. For me, at a time when Hyderabad, AP, then didn't even have a national champion. So for me to think and dream that I would become an All England champion was impossible. Even if I had a dream, it maximum would have been to become a state champion. So every step I moved, I realized that the next step was possible. I loved the journey very much. I loved getting up in the morning and working hard. And studies were important because otherwise my mother won't let me play. So it was very important. And then when I finished my career, I somehow realized that I wasn't the most talented of the kids who were there. I had 3 knee surgeries. I had multiple surgeries before I won the All England. And if I could become an All England champion, there are many more around me who can become better than me. That's the idea with which I started coaching. It didn't come easy. My initial years of playing, I just felt that when we were playing, we had simple things which we didn't have. We would go to the stadium, watchmen didn't come, go inside, shuttles are not there, court is dirty, there's pigeon shit all around, there's a light, current is not there. Come elections, for 3 months the stadium used to be closed. So we had our own issues. We go to the ground mein shaadi hua hai. So these were issues which I faced, and I said, if I can provide these basic things to players, if I could become a player, these kids could be much better than me. With that idea, I started off thinking about the Gopichand Academy, because I felt it was important that all of these things should be coming in one place. And a kid should come there, he should not think that I don't have shuttles, coaches, players, gym, running track, swimming pool, food, all of these things should be one place. With that in mind, I thought of starting the academy, and we had a lot of challenges building the academy, and Satish knows this story all through. But I would say that for me, when I finished my playing career, I only thought that I wish, because when I won the All England, I realized that I had the formula to win. And I was so happy I found the formula. But unfortunately, I couldn't use it on myself much, because I had my 4th surgery on my right knee, and every day I would get up, one of the knees would hurt. So I had to stop, and I said, I want to use this formula. And that's how we had our players come in. We had our first bunch of about 25 kids who we started coaching in 2004. The oldest of them was Parupalli Kashyap, who won the Commonwealth Games in 2014. And the youngest of them was PV Sindhu. And in between, we had players like Saina, Sai Praneeth, Guru Sai Dutt, Sikki Reddy, Sumit Reddy, all of them came from that. So it's been a great journey for me. For me, as an athlete, the focus which sport brings to you was the greatest thing. And when I won the All England and I went and lost the next year, there were moments when I actually thought I wish I hadn't won the All England, because it was hard for me to lose first round. My reputation was bigger. My inner self said, why did I win? Had I not won, I would have continued playing the sport and fought a little harder, and nobody would bother about it. Nobody would write on the front pages that an All England champion, defending champion, has lost in the first round. So those kind of things hurt me because I loved the sport. Never in my life did it feel like it was boring or hard work or sacrifice. I loved the sport, I loved the hard work, and for me it was love, passion, involvement, learning, and these were the words, and never did discipline, hard work, sacrifice come into my mind as such. It's been a great journey, and today I feel very blessed that I thank God that I've been part of this journey, and I hope that there are many, many more years where I can continue to be part of badminton, because giving back is something, but I just love the sport. I don't think so much about giving back or all that stuff, but I just love the sport. I wake up happily in the morning, and I get to bed satisfied, and that's what's important. What Abhinav spoke about is the kind of self which you feel happy about, that you've given it your best shot and you're happy about it. I think that is what sport gives, and that is what has been the greatest learning for me.
And so I want to start this discussion. I think in both of your opening comments, you talked about you really enjoyed the journey, right? Which is very, very, very important. I think destination could be anything. If you really don't enjoy the journey, you'll never get to the destination. And I think the other piece is really, I think, rising from adversity, right? Both of you have had injuries, both of you had downtime. I think if you can share, Abhinav and Gopi, about, in terms of how did you pull yourself back from those, troughs where pretty much there's a bit of disbelief, injury, and cynicism all around. How do you motivate? Because that's so much necessary for entrepreneurs. I mean, one day, we think we are at the top of the world because you're building the best company. I mean, the next day you see so much of competition, or, somebody getting more money than you did, and there's economic recession. So it'd be great if you can share your thoughts on this.
I'll let Gopi give the injury example, dwell into it more because he had a few more than I did. But I'll maybe talk about the toughest moment in my sporting career. And in fact, the toughest moment in my sporting career actually came when I succeeded. I failed a lot of times, but when I actually won the gold medal, those were my darkest days. For 15 years of my life, I had worked for a particular day, for a particular moment that I'd win this gold medal. And I used to go to bed with the same dream, wake up every morning, trying to make that dream come to a reality. And one fine day, that dream was realized, and I had this gold medal in my pocket, and I was all dressed, and I had nowhere to go. So it created a huge void in my life, which was really, really tough to work with. And it's an interesting thing how I got over it. At that moment after Beijing, I actually wanted to quit the sport, and I wanted to move on and do something else. And I was trying to look for my next calling. And I decided to go on a Vipassana meditation course, which lasted 10 days, and it is a silent retreat that you go to and you meditate for 10 days. So I go to this retreat where I'm supposed to meditate about 10 hours a day. And the only thing that I think of during these 10 days was shooting. That taught me something, that I really loved what I did. I loved the process of what I did. I loved the boring and the mundane. I loved training. And that's what got me back for more. And, just being invested in the process, trying to make a better version of myself every single day, that just propelled me and pushed me and gave me the energy to compete for another 8 or 9 years. And, I won a few medals. I won a Commonwealth Games. I won Asian Games medals, and I finished 4th at the Olympics even after that. So it was all about pursuing your passion, and it was all about the love for the process of the sport.
I think the process is more important. But the fact is, when I was 18, um, that's when I got my job. That's when it was decided that I could continue playing badminton for the rest of my life. And then when I was 20, um, I was the national champion of the country, national number one of the country. Things looked fantastic for me. And then I was playing doubles, and I had reached the finals of the singles at the national games. And I collided with my partner, and he landed on my leg, and I twisted my knee and basically broke the anterior cruciate ligament of my left knee. And suddenly it almost felt that, and nobody before me, in fact after me also, has really recovered from an ACL tear to play men's singles again. So for me, at that point of time, it was like almost the end of my career. Not many people said it openly, but I could really, when I walked, I could hear those whispers. So for a year after that, I didn't win anything, or just I barely started playing till a year again. Again, this was in 94 January. Then in 96, I had another surgery. Went on after that. Before in 95, I beat the Olympic champion of 92, and then in 96, I had beat the Olympic champion of 96. But I had another surgery on my left knee, and then in 98, I had another surgery on my left knee. Every time I went up, it was down, up, down, up, down. And then in the year 2002, I had another surgery, this time on my right knee, which was an overuse injury, because over the years of pounding on my left knee, I was using my right knee more, which got worn out. The thing which I really loved about the process was that I would get up in the morning, and then I wasn't able to walk for many times. And then someday, and when you have a surgery, then there's no muscle left. So one day you're watching, and there's one small muscle which is tweaking, and then you feel happy about it, and you celebrate it, and that becomes your motivation for the next day. And then you're able to walk someday, and that becomes your motivation. And then suddenly, after a month, you're able to run, and that becomes your motivation. And then again, after a few months, you're able to play, and you lose, but you're happy that you're able to play. And then after a few days, you're able to win, and you're happy that you won. So it's almost like you celebrate those small moments, and you almost say, thank you, God, at least have this for me. At least I'm improving, and that was important. And the next time I got injured, I would say, come on, I'm better than you. I'll beat you this time. And the next time I got injured, it was almost the same. I would say, I'll come back again stronger. And truly, I would think that I was like, and I would have this feeling for me, because we would go for international tournaments back then. Unfortunately for us, although Prakash sir won in 1980, the All England, and he was really ruling the world at that time, we thought he was God, and we didn't associate with him. We never thought we could become like him. So for us, when we went for international tournaments, our basic thing was, joke around then was morning show or matinee, in the sense, when did you lose kind of a thing. By the end of the first day, they will all say Indians would carry one pair of playing clothes and keep a lot of bags placed, because we had to shop and get a lot of things back home. This was how thinking were. The challenge was that we would have to go from Hyderabad to Delhi by train. That was 26, 27 hours, then wait for 2-3 days for visas, then the clearance. By the 10 days before the event, you're so motivated to reach there that after reaching there, you're really happy. So nobody actually thought that we could win. So for me, that thing was never, winning was later. I think to reach there was important. For the first few years, we were happy reaching there. But then somewhere in between, the pride got hurt. In the sense, I cannot lose. Sometimes I would go and I would say, I cannot lose to these English fellows. And generally, and they ruled us for so many years, we cannot lose to them. I cannot lose to these Chinese guys. I cannot lose to them. And somewhere it was, and then it was later, it became a very personal thing, in the sense, I cannot lose to Peter Gade. in the sense he gave me a nasty look last time he beat him. It was a very personal pride issue. So I really worked hard. Those moments of hurt when you lose and you walk out, those things make you come back and say, next time I'll give it back to him. And those were very important. So you figure a way to work harder, push harder. And when it's done, then figure a way of celebrating whatever you've achieved. And that for me was very important. In the last few days, people have asked, Sindhu has won 2 bronze, 2 silver, and then a gold. How do you feel now? I said, boss, when we won the bronze, I was happy. When we won the silver, I am happy. And when we won the gold also, I am happy. It's not that when we won the bronze, we are thinking that we've lost the silver and gold. Neither when we won the silver, we didn't think that we lost the gold. I think every moment we won, we were happy. And that celebration and that inner peace is also very, very important. So for us, I think, for me, this whole journey has been about celebrating those small victories, but also keep pushing and pushing. But when the match is done, when you're done, I think it's important to take your lessons and keep pushing again.
No, I think listening to both of you is like a lot of entrepreneurs here. I don't think they need to have boardroom conversations with investors about these things, because I think the passion, grit, celebrating every small victory, not giving up, being spiritual, being detached, kind of having an outside-in perspective, I think is just so important. And I can clearly see why, obviously, there's so much correlation between sport and entrepreneurship.
I mean, it's just absolutely a huge privilege and pleasure and delight, to be here and to hear you talk about your experiences. And I'm sure it's of enormous value to everybody here. One of the things I wanted to ask you, especially given, the journey that you just talked about and related to the entrepreneurs here, oftentimes we hear that it's very hard to build a business in India, because you deal with the bureaucracy, you deal with the laws, you deal with, all kinds of challenges. It's really, really hard. And I'm sure when you started along your journey, you encountered a lot of challenges dealing with the bureaucracy, dealing with administration, dealing with, all of those things that really make life really hard for a passionate young sports-loving person who goes on to achieve incredible success. How does one deal with environmental factors that really cause so much of disturbance and yet remain focused on the goal and not say, oh my God, this is like too painful, let me see if I can get a shortcut, let me try and compromise on whatever, on my values, on my training and all of that, and just try and see if I can, wing my way through, right? I mean, it's very hard for a lot of entrepreneurs to deal with the environmental things. How do you react to something like that?
So when I was growing up, obviously, we hadn't won a gold medal at the Olympic Games, and rather than focusing on the apparent lack of our Olympic history, I rather focused on building a team around me, which was extremely positive, and they were my shield. There was a lot of negativity around sport in India. Every time we went to an Olympics, it was that no Indian had ever can win a gold medal and things like that. There was also a lot of critics back home. People within our organizations who didn't really believe in their own athletes, and it was just a case of using that as motivation, and trying to prove a point. And as Gopi was just saying, that it becomes a matter of pride, and it is a matter of showing them that you can. And I think it is about using that negativity and turning it into a positive way. But I think in the bigger picture, it's about building a group of people around you who are positive towards your goals, towards your own mission. I was in an individual sport. However, going into the games in Beijing, I had an entourage. I was working with about 9 people. And I kind of became a manager of these 9 people. Although I was the athlete, I had to manage these 9 people and sometimes work with their egos as well. I had 2 sets of coaches, and they never got along with each other. So I had to set times where they didn't have eye contact even. So It was very delicate. You had to, you know, deal with the situation very delicately. I had a coach who probably till today he's the only person I actually still hate, because he always kept telling me things which I never wanted to hear. But I persisted with him because I saw immense value in that, because he gave another perspective to my way of training. You know, whenever he told me something, I didn't like it. But after a couple of days, you know, when things settled down, it started to make sense. And that was immense value as well. And I think in life we also encounter different points of views. Sometimes some things you don't like to hear, and you know they annoy you. But I think it's always nice to absorb it. And you know, sometimes probably I used to get a golden nugget here and there from this particular coach, and it had immense value. So it was, I think, I naturally was also not the most positive human being around. I was a very realistic sort of a person. And in sport, I think you need to be positive. It just helps. It was all about building that team around me. You know, whenever I felt hopeless, and I felt hopeless pretty much every second day, my team continued to see a lot of hope in me. And it was building that team around me which was my shield. It was working with people who really believed in my abilities, and that just started to rub off. And I think that really helped in the whole pursuit, that I had to create my own environment, which was going to help me.
Fabulous. Gopi?
Yeah, I think I was lucky, and I echo exactly what Abhinav was saying, that the team is very important. For me, I've been very fortunate that my mother and father really pushed me, supported me 100%, because especially during the times of injury and stuff, I had a great doctor who actually told me things like, if you're injured 32 times, I'll operate and you 32 times, but your left knee is better than your right knee. And I believed him. I believed. I was smart enough to believe him. And that was what was important. Whenever I was, one was the shield which my parents supported me. But for me, I think whatever comes at you, it's important that you are smart enough to figure a way to work harder. And that is what was important. You had people who would say, "Ye nahi jeetega." I said, "Isko dikhaunga, main jeetega." Somebody would say, "Ye jeetega." I said, "Yeah, come on, like, I'll take it." So you take whatever comes to you, but you kind of convert it and figure a way to be working harder. Sport is not the smartest of things. You have to be dumb to be a sports person.
Like an entrepreneur.
You're very likely to fail if you are a sports person. My Telugu teacher in school told me, Gopi, what are the chances that you'll be a national champion? There's only one person in the country who will be. But if you're an engineer, there are thousands of them who will be. If I was smart, if I was smart, I would have taken that path. I didn't. And I think in a lot of ways, it defies logic if you plan it that way. But I think our heart is there. We want to succeed, and we figure a way of succeeding, of working hard, basically, to be pushing yourself on those days. And there are people and ecosystems which are tough, and in India it's very tough in the sense there's association. So I would go for tournaments back then, World Cup, Asia Cup. These were tournaments where I would be the single entry from India, and no practice partner, no coach, no physio, nothing. So I would go get 1 hour to play, serve, go to the other side, pick the shuttle up, come, serve the other side, and then play. I've played tournaments like these. In Asian Games in quarterfinals, I had one of the star sports reporter as my coach, because he was the only guy who was available, Ashish. So that's how things were. But you kind of, it's about pride, and you will, and at some point of time, if I win, I have a story to tell, is also what you're telling yourself. And for me, at the end of the day, I've given it my best shot. And if I don't succeed, it's okay. But I've given it my best shot is what was important for me. And that really helped to think, because I wasn't in control of changing people's views, ideas, and their prejudices and perceptions of sport. But what I had was my ability to push harder. And I would say, no matter what happens on the other side, I will succeed. And I was fooling myself, but it was okay till it made me work harder.
Athletes are the best con artists, you know. We're trying to fool ourselves every single day in trying ourselves to believe that we're the best.
That's exactly what Steve Jobs would do. He called it a reality distortion field.
Absolutely. No, I think we talked about grit. I think we talked about pushing boundaries. We talked about creating teams so that you have positive vibes. I think all of these are very, very relevant to entrepreneurship as well. An ability to deal with adversity when you're written off and there's no hope. One of the points I want you to talk about or delve into is quick thinking and decision making is also so critical for entrepreneurs to succeed. What are those moments in your journeys where you made some decisions that paid off?
I think one of the most important things in sport is the ability to adapt to situations. You have a plan A, but in most cases, 9 out of 10 times, you end up with plan D. So, so I think, and that's what happened to me in my entire career. But the fact was that I had a plan A, I had a plan B, I had a plan C, and I had a plan D. And it was about working on different elements and trying to take every possible vertical out of the equation in preparing for the games. I'll give you a few examples on how I prepared for the Beijing Olympic Games.
Sure.
I had my brain mapped, for example. I went to a sports science laboratory in Cape Town, and I spent 1,000 hours mapping my brain to see what sort of brain activity I had when I was shooting well. And then I trained my mind to be in that particular mind frame and tried to replicate it. I had an incident in the Athens Olympics where they realized that the floor I was standing on was unstable. So I trained for Beijing on a wobbly floor, trying to take that vertical out of the equation. The Beijing Olympic Hall, the finals arena, was a massive space. It was probably the biggest hall that I've ever been to. And in a sport like shooting, it is all about stability and balance. And you need to have those visual reference points in order to get that stability and that balance. So in preparation for Beijing, I hired a marriage hall back home in Chandigarh and set up a shooting range. That's the closest I've come to marriage, by the way. So it was about taking all possible equations out of the game. For example, before the Beijing Games, the Chinese ammunition was supposed to be the best in the world, and it had a distinct advantage over every other ammunition. So I actually got a friend from Hong Kong to smuggle some in for me. So I even became a smuggler in my pursuit. It was the point that I'm trying to make is that it was about preparation. It was the fact that when I went into Beijing or when I went into a few of my other Olympic pursuits, before going into the event, I asked myself the difficult question, and that was, have I given it my best to prepare for these Olympic Games? And when the answer was yes, I was a winner in my own eyes, even before the first shot was fired. So I think that was the most important thing, and that is the most critical thing if you're trying to succeed.
Great. Gopi?
I think there were decisions which were in my sporting career, matches-wise. I think I'll share it that I was not as meticulous in my preparation as Abhinav was. I would kind of trust God and say, Bhagwan dekh lega. Because many of those things I was finding it difficult. In my entire career, I've never actually gone out and asked for a sponsor. So I have not gone out to my federation to ask. Even if I didn't have a coach, I just went. And I say, we'll figure it out there. And I had somebody who to help me out. But I never gone out there and said, let me fix the sponsor. I said, whatever money I had, I'll spend it and be done with it. So that's the kind of mindset I had. So it's a little different from. But what I did was that I would meditate a lot. I would believe that somehow we will do. But the one aspect which is important is, say, my All England final, a semi-final match, if you get a chance to rewind and watch it sometime. It was the end points, and I was leading, and then Peter get caught up. He had figured a strategy of breaking what I was playing well, and then he caught up, and it was 14 all. And for me, the last 3 points were important. So it was the most cheekiest thing I did, in the sense, it's like you play with kids and you do a fake service. It was almost like an underarm ball or something. You did that once and I got a point on 15. And I was like, the next thing I said is, what if I do it again? And I said, this is the last thing anybody will think in an All England semi-finals. I said, the last time I won it on attack, so he will try and attack, so he'll keep the first shuttle at the net. So I served and just went straight to the net. It was instinct. I just served a fake serve, and I just went to the net and stood there, and he actually played it there. I tapped it, got 2 points. And the third time I said, if I can't do it 3 times, it'll be really stupid. So I stayed conventional. But I actually said, what did I not do in the entire match? And I reflected. And there was a particular shot which I didn't do, which was a cross-court half smash overhead. And I didn't do it in the entire match. A normal tendency would be that it's the last point of the match. I will play the safest shot, which I've played and trusted and done. I said, what did I not do and what will he not expect? And I went for it, and it was a winner. So those were the kind of things on court which I have done to be. This is only one of the match I'm reflecting to. There was another point when we were all, I was excited to start the academy. It was all fantastic. I would go to a lot of people to ask for sponsorships. Slowly, people stopped refusing calls. People stopped meeting me because every time I go, I would ask for sponsorships. And then there was a certain point when I was very, very tired, very disappointed with people not funding the academy. And I sat down with my parents and wife, and we had a house in Jubilee Hills of Hyderabad. And there was a moment where I had to mortgage the house or sell it. And we decided in favor of doing either of it. And I mortgaged my house. This was in 2007, and that's when we were able to complete the academy with a 3 crore loan on my house. So those decisions are very important, because when you trust, when you do it, and there's a point when nobody believes it but you, I think you have to jump, and the comfort you have to leave, and you have to be ready to trust that it's okay to kind of start off again, but the comfort has to go, and that's something which was important. So I think risk is important, and I think to be not afraid of starting the whole journey again is important. I think if I had to play again, every time I jumped, when I was playing, people said, Gopi, ACL tear, don't play singles. ACL, I was the most aggressive guys. I would jump, hit. I wasn't bothered, and I would train like that. And people said, why are you jumping? You will hurt the injury. I said, forget it. If I jump and if I get hurt, I'll go get a surgery. So back-to-back surgeries, I wanted, every time you jump, the feeling is it might twist again. And I was ready. If it twists again, I'll go back to the doctor again. But you're not giving up, and that element of taking risk is a very important aspect.
That's great.
Talking about risk, my whole sports career was a risk. When I started off as a kid, I actually hated sport. I was this big fat boy who was a champion at missing physical education classes at school. And one fine day I was introduced to the sport of shooting, because I'd pretty much given up on all other sport. And I went to my first coach, and I went for my first shooting session, and I loved it. I loved it because to be successful in my sport, I had to stand still. So, I mean, talking about risk, I mean, spent 22 years in sport, and I did all right.
What next, Abhinav? I think, can you talk a little bit about the foundation and, yeah.
Yeah, so I set up the Abhinav Bindra Foundation almost 10 years ago, and over the last few years, we've set up these high-performance centers which work on high-performance training for athletes. They work on injury prevention. I think injury prevention is, we heard a lot about Gopi's injuries, and it's all about injury prevention. And of course, in an event where athletes do get injured, it's about managing injuries with the best possible technology and know-how in today's day and age. So the foundation is pretty much working with grassroots level athletes. My biggest passion is to work with athletes between the age of 12 and 17 who've not really made it as yet, but to work with them, and we give out these scholarships called the STEAM scholarships. STEAM standing for science, technology, engineering, analytics, and medicine. And we try and incorporate all those elements into athletes' trainings. And I believe for us to develop as a sporting nation, we have to try and change the ecosystem surrounding sport in India. There is a huge lack of awareness amongst our coaches on the use of science and technology and its integration into sporting performance. And that's the change that I'm trying to make with my initiative. And that is to actually bring all these elements into the grassroots so that 12-year-old kids start talking about VO2 max and start having those conversations. Coaches get that awareness, because I really do believe in order for us to become a 4-5 medal nation to develop from a 4-5 medal nation and become maybe 10 to 15 medals at an Olympic Games, we will have to work on this 1%, and we'll have to work on with science and technology, and that has to be inculcated right down at our grassroots. So that's what I'm trying to do with the foundation. It's something I'm very passionate about, and it's something that's very close to my heart.
It's great. And I think we will all be volunteers and will support. I appeal to people in audience who love sport, could connect with Abhinav and support. Gopi, I want you to delve into one thing. So it's kind of the art of letting go, right? All of us as investors as well as entrepreneurs have this challenge of letting go because you're too feverish, you're too possessive. In your own case, I think you've seen Sindhu and Saina, they've grown up as kids in your academy and, they became world champions and top performers. Then you decided to bring set of coaches. You decided to bring in a very different support structure. I watched the most recent World Cup. You let them do all the talking. You were there. You were just standing there. You were just observing, but you're not intruding. How do you what made you decide that this was very much necessary at that point of time? And how easy or difficult is it to let go, something that you've really kind of planted?
Well, I think to do things differently, to do bigger things, I think it's important for you to let go. And it's also important for you to kind of say it's okay. Where I'm coming from is, I think I was there when these kids were really young. I did the entire journey with them. But then today there is Saina, there's Sindhu, there's Shrikant, Sai, Saurav, Samir, Kashyap. They're like, this is the men's singles. And on the women's singles, on the men's singles, then there is men's doubles, and there's junior, sub-junior. So typically I would go in on a day and starting matches at 9 o'clock, first match of an Indian, I'm sitting there for men's doubles. And then the last match is women's singles, and I'm there for that. So in a day, one coach comes, does his three and goes back, and I'm doing 20 matches in a day. But it's important that those coaches take responsibility. So it's important that you let go. But you can't let go fully as well. So it's important that there's only a step back you can take, but if somebody goes back later, you have enough to actually take care of it. So there's that element which is important. There's an interesting thing about coaching which one of the Canadian coaches had said, and it's very interesting that he states that in the first part about a journey of how a coach and a student. He says students are like small birds, and you can't hold them too tight because they will suffocate and die, but you can't let them go fully also because they'll fly off and you're not in control. You just have to hold them enough so that they're able to breathe and be comfortable with. But no matter whether the bird stays or goes, be rest assured that it will shit in your hands. That's what they say. He starts off.
No, I think you're talking about the picture behind you. I think take a look at it. It's exactly the same thing. You know, you're not suffocating, but you're also giving support. Yeah.
So that's the words with which coaching starts. So basically, I think it's important to be able to let go. And I've had my share of issues, so I'm sure people are aware of it. But I think it's important to be a good coach and to get results. You have to be thinking that they are your kids and you have to do them that way, in the sense otherwise results don't come. You have to, I've probably spent more time with Saina and Sindhu than I've done with my daughter Gayatri, much more time. But that's the way it is. If I didn't do that, we wouldn't get the results what we got. But I think it's also important to let go. Absolutely. Because I think that's where our own self-growth is as well. And I think it's important not to be attached, but to be super attached.
We'll open it up for a few questions. Yeah.
Hi guys, fantastic feedback, comments, and really candid. I had two questions, and both of them were related to your sort of coaching hat. One is how do you identify talent? What is the mechanism that you use that this person is going to make it or this person is not going to make it? One is that question, and the second question is that to be a good coach, do you need to be a great coach? Do you need to be a great player?
I don't have the patience for being a coach, so I gave up before I even started on that count. So I'll let Gopi answer this one.
Well, although we talk about a Saina and a Sindhu and a Sai or Srikant or whatever, I think the amount of failures I've had are much more. And today it sounds very strange, but it is a very unfair question to ask whether the kid is talented or not. I think we have to, and I might sound strange, but the reality is that we have to ask ourselves, where is his talent lying in? And I would think as parents, we have to ask that question. Where is the talent lying in? And as team leaders also, we have to ask this question. If you're running a company and if he's not a good worker, I think we should have that human respect to ask not is he talented or not, but where is his talent lying in? And the onus should be on us to put him where he is talented in, where our kids are talented in. So I think the word talent, I know two kids coming from same families with same parentage and same genes, one might play well, one might not play well. So I think sport is so much about genetics and other factors that it's unfair to treat champions very highly and throw the rest of them, because there's a lot of people who've put in a lot of effort but not make it. It doesn't mean that they've worked any less harder. It's just that somehow they've not made it. So I think the unfair thing about sport is the champion gets everything and the rest of them get nothing. So I think talent is overrated. Talent should be looked at very differently, and more than talent, it is the work ethic which I would look at. It is the ability to take whatever comes and turn it into a stronger motivation is what I would think is an important aspect. And to keep failing, but think that you are going to succeed the next time is a very important quality, and to keep learning is what is important. And the second question about, yeah, at a grassroots level, there is an example which I would think that you need to be a good player to be a good coach at a grassroots level, because the kids don't listen to what you say, but they do what you do. So that's something which kids pick up. They're not listening to you. They're whatever you do, they do. So that is something in a corporate world. Probably, I go to the academy early, and if I go to the academy really early, I don't have to tell people to come early to the academy. And if I'm putting 10 hours of work a day, then I don't have to tell the other coaches that you have to put in so much of work. It just doesn't. I reach there at 4:15 and the first session starts at 4:45. So people come there and see me half in sweat, and they're like, okay, even if they're 5 minutes late, the next day they come back on time. So that's something which I think is important. As a coach for an elite athlete, it is different. It is about managing the athlete. Even if you're not, if you can't show or experience, also it's fine, because you can find people from different fields who will come and be part of it. So I think it helps to be a good player, to be a coach, but it's not definitely necessary, especially at the high level, is what my feeling is.
Just expanding on that a little bit, now that he's given me a few ideas, I think the role of sports, of science and technology can be useful in talent ID. I don't think it is the only thing, but it can help us identify young people on how naturally gifted they are and in what skills they do possess naturally. I don't think that is going to be enough for them to win medals. That's not going to be the only thing. I think hard work ethics and the work ethic is far more important. But I think the science and technology aspect is something which can be utilized pretty well in helping identify talent. And I think about failure, I think it's also about failing well. It's about using failure as information, keeping aside the unwanted baggage and learning from it and moving on. And I think that is something very important while trying to succeed in sport.
Any other questions? Great. Thank you, gentlemen. Let's give them a big round of applause. Thank you so much.
Thank you.